Hi, my name is Roman Prokes. We are based in New York City. The name of my company is called RPNY Tennis. We have few locations in the city and around Manhattan and Long Island City. And basically, what I have been personally doing is working with the top professional players for the last 30 years. We do the stringing for the Fed Cup, for the Davis Cup. We string at all the Grand Slams, all the majors, basically for about the last 25 years. We also do, customizing for professional players, for non-professional players, for a lot of juniors. So basically anything that has to do with the equipment, racket, stringing, customizing, that's our specialty.
Perfect, Roman. So you are the guru of the technology in tennis. So I'm gonna ask you the first question, which we get here very often. What are the most popular strings in the market right now, and which ones are like best for each of the, let's say, age categories?
There's a lot of, you'll see that when you go to the stores or you go online, there is probably hundreds, if not thousands of strings. So for a lot of people, it's very confusing because they don't know what to look for. So you have to kind of break it down to really the three basic types, which is, the most popular these days is polyester strings. Every major manufacturer makes polyester strings. Just to use an example, it's the Babolat, RPM Blast, it's the Luxelon types of strings. But again, every manufacturer makes those strings. They are great, they are durable, they generate a lot of spin. Then the second string that it's also great, but it's a different type of string. It's called the multi-filament strings. Those are basically nylon strings, but very, very high quality, made very similar way as a natural gut. It's a twisted fibers together, and they have different composition. Again, every manufacturer has those. I highly, highly recommend those types of strings basically for younger players or for people who have any kind of arm issue, or for people like myself. I'm 55 years old. I play more at the classical tennis. So for me, I don't get the benefit from the polyester string, from the heavy spin, because that's not how I play. So the multi-filaments are easy on the arm, very, very good strings. A lot of times, you'll even see them that a lot of people do a hybrid of both strings. They do the polyester mixed with the multi-filament. And the third one, which is basically the best string ever made, is a natural gut. Again, there is few companies who make natural gut. The most famous and the best one is a Babolat natural gut. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people think that people don't use gut anymore. We actually sell more gut now than ever before. And also you'll see it a lot on a professional tour, not straight gut in the racket, but it's a hybrid of polyester and gut, because it gives you the best qualities, and it's the softest, the easiest string on the arm. Has one disadvantage, that it's quite expensive and it gets affected by heat and humidity. So for example, for you guys in this Florida summer, you probably wouldn't be selling a lot of sets of gut, but more, let's say, the multi-filament mixed with the poly. But those are the general three types of strings.
Okay. Now, if we break down the age division, let's say under 12, 13 to 16, and 16 and above, which, like for the younger kids, let's start with the younger kids, under 12, you recommend to have RPM, Luxelon, they say the polyester stuff, or more like a mix?
I highly, highly, highly recommend, and I couldn't stress this enough, for the smaller kids. Let's say, up to the age of about 10, and also it depends how big and how strong they are. So if you have a smaller kid who is not, an advanced player, I would almost not allow them to use the polyester strings, because they are asking for trouble down the line. It doesn't mean they'll get hurt right away, but it's just too hard. It's too stiff for their growing body. So I wouldn't almost allow it. When you have a kid, let's say the age of about 11, 12, if the kid is very big and strong and they are kind of getting, they need already the spin, they are hitting the ball well, at that point I would basically allow them to go to the hybrid strings. They can still use the soft strings in the mains, because mostly when you play tennis, you feel the main strings more than the cross strings. So in order to make it easier for their body, I would put the soft strings in the mains, the multi-filament, and then softer type of poly, and there are a lot of them, in the crosses. Like Lexilon is a little bit stiffer, so for the younger kids, I wouldn't put it there yet. It's more like the Technifiber red coat, Babolat, RP and Blast. Strings like that are they are softer, so you can do it. And then when you get a kid about the age of, let's say around the age of 12, they are becoming more advanced, you can flip it around. You can do the hybrid where you put the poly in the mains and the softer strings in the crosses. So you can do that. And then the age of about 12, basically I tell all the kids, stay away from full bed of poly as long as you can possibly wait.
Okay.
So the age of about between the 13 and 16, you're gonna start, you're gonna have a kid who is, 5'8" and hits the ball very hard. They still might play better with the hybrid, but what happens, it breaks a lot quicker. So sometimes the parents are obviously concerned about, they cannot afford to string every single day. So when that happens, I tell people, look, why don't we go to full bed of poly, but use the soft one as low tension as possibly you can handle. And that's, I cannot stress enough again, with full poly, you can string at low tensions. Just to use an example, Jack Sock strings at 35 pounds. And he generates tremendous spin. It's an extreme, but to be in the low 40s, mid 40s, upper 40s, it's very normal. So you don't have to string it too tight.
Perfect.
And then you basically still pay attention to the kid. If you say, look, if he's starting to feel any pains, if the shoulder is starting to hurt, you still go back to the hybrid.
Okay.
Anything over the 16 years of age, they can use anything. It depends how they play.
All right, thank you very much. Now, coming to that, to what you remark at the end regarding the pains, how does the vibration dampener work? And does it really help with people with tennis elbow?
You know what, the vibration dampeners dampen the vibration of the string bed. So whatever vibration is created by, compacting the string with the ball, then it travels to the racket. So you are dampening the vibration from the string going into the racket. It doesn't dampen anything going from the racket to the arm because it's not in between your arm and the racket. However, I always recommend it to people if you have any kind of potential issues. If you start saying, oh, I'm starting to hurt a little bit, then I say, it doesn't hurt you. So I said, why don't you use it? Because it can only help. A lot of people, they either love it or they hate it because what it does, it changes the sound of the racket and a little bit the feel. So some people love it and some people hate it. But I would definitely recommend for people to use it. But if they don't like it, it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
It's a personal preference.
Great. Okay. Coming back to a poly, a lot of parents like the poly because it lasts a lot and they don't seem to spend a lot of money stringing. I know that you said that that this is a warning with the younger kids because some of them have this string for 2 months or more without breaking it. Can you tell us like how often they do have to break the string and to restring it again?
With the first of all, with the poly, again, I talk to parents all the time, and I warn them very, very strongly, do not use it for the younger kids. Just don't do it. For the most part, the younger kids don't hit the ball so hard with heavy spin, so they don't break the strings that much. So they are much better off with a soft multi-filament strings. Okay. Once they get to the point that they start using it, people a little bit forget that, polyester strings is one of the strings that keeps losing tension. It never stops. No matter which one you can get the best poly in the world. And, Babolat, for example, has done a lot of testing on Lexilon and their own poly. So they really did test the best polys, and amazingly, they found out that after 20 hours of play, it can lose 50% of tension. Imagine that. You string your racket at 55 pounds, you keep it there for 20 hours of play, you are down into the upper 20s, maybe 30 pounds, which is absolutely amazing. So poly, it's a little bit, you have to be careful because even though you don't break it, for the most part, you have to restring the racket about 8 to 10 hours of play. You're going to cut it out and you're going to restring it. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything for you at that point. It just blocks the ball, but you start changing your game, so it doesn't help you.
Okay, thank you. Now, you gave an example of Jack Sock that uses 35 pounds. If you, like given the example from the pros, how a person can find what would be best tension-wise for their style of play. Like the people that are best liners would like to have loose tension. The people that come to the net and finish the points at the net will have higher tension in the rackets.
Exactly, that's a good point. There is a different type of criteria. It really depends how you are striking the ball. So use an example of, for example, Jack Sock. You know, when you watch Jack Sock, he generates more spin on the ball actually than Nadal. That allows him to basically control the ball through the racket head speed, and because of that, he has tremendous racket head speed, so he can string at low tensions. If, you know, that's kind of an extreme. For the most part, if you have the full poly, you're gonna the poly basically gives you the benefit of the poly of the string is for people who generate racket head speed. So every young kid who likes to play with spin, which these days it's pretty much, you know, a lot of players, they can string with full bed of poly, they'll get the benefit, but they'll get the benefit at lower tensions. Because at high tension, the string basically, the ball leaves the strings way too quickly, so it doesn't allow the string to grab the ball and to generate a spin. So you are almost killing the qualities of the string if you string it too tight. As far as what exact tension, it's a personal thing. You really have to experiment. I tell people, don't worry about the numbers, because a lot of times you tell people string it at 44 or 46, and they just hear the 44 or 46 and they're afraid of the low number, as opposed to let's go on a court, let's test it, and let's try it. So with a full bed of poly, I recommend people go test it for your own. Let's say you play at 55 pounds. It's very hard for me to go to you and say, well, let me string it at 44, because the difference is way too big, and you're gonna say, oh, I don't like it. But let's say you string at 55, what I tell people, why don't you, the next string drop you do, let's drop it 2 pounds, and let's see if it bothers you or if it doesn't. So let's say we would go to 53, the next string drop. If you go on a court and you like it and you have no problems whatsoever, and you are at 53, I say, well, next time, why don't we go down to 51? And you basically lower it slowly till you find a limit when you say, this is good. Let's say, and everybody is different. For somebody, it can be 53. For somebody, it can be 42. But you just go as low as you can handle when you're going to say, oh my God, this is amazing. For example, Christina McHale, I've been talking, she's been stringing at 57, 58 pounds with full bed of poly. For about 3 years, everybody, me and coaches included, are telling her you need to either string with the hybrid or you need to drop the tension, because she doesn't generate enough pace on the ball. The ball doesn't travel through the court quickly enough. So, again, the coach last year in China, he dropped it on her without her knowing. He brought it down to 49 pounds, and sure enough, she said, oh my God, this is so much better. I get more spin, I get more power, yet she still has the control. So she ends up at 49 pounds. That's now her tension. So it's very individual, but I would say basically small increments, changes, go drop it till you hit the limit where you say, now it's too loose. So that's when you stay. With the hybrid strings, in general, you have to be a little bit tighter, because, the multi-filament or natural gut is a more springy string. So the ball travels quicker, flies more. So in general, we do the soft string about 3 to 4 pounds tighter than the polyester strings.
All right. With what you mentioned before, that some players are combining the polyester with the multifilament. The polyester goes on the mains and the multifilament goes across, or vice versa?
You can actually, it's a personal feel. You can, for the most part, I would say the polyester go in the mains, multifilament in the cross. But again, you go, for example, you go to a lot of girls do it the other way, because they hit, as you know this even better, they hit more through the ball. They kind of drive the ball as opposed to just generating the motion going up for the heavy spin. So look at for example, Sharapova, look at Serena Williams. They string they actually use natural gut in the mains, but you can exchange the gut for the multifilament, and they use polyester in the crosses because they get more penetration through the court. However, girls these days string tighter than guys. Because of that reason, they don't generate the racket head speed as high as the guys. So they need to control the ball a little bit through slightly higher tensions.
Okay. When the people are ready to buy rackets and they see the amount of strings on the cross and the mains. What is the main difference between the 16 and by 19 or 18 by those numbers? How do you they
Different
can?
patterns, yeah.
Yes.
You have, you know what, it's kind of a little bit, because when you go to most stores or most places, people don't really give you good advice, and it's absolutely makes a tremendous difference of what string bed do you buy. So let's say, use an example. Wilson makes the Wilson Blade Racket. It's a phenomenal frame, great racket, but they have they have actually 4 different models. So let's use the 98 head size. They have 2 models in those, and they have the 1820. So who do I recommend the 1820? For me, for example, for my style of play, more traditional, hitting through the ball, using softer string because I don't generate spin, so I don't need a poly. The 1820 is a fantastic racket because I can string it with, let's say, softer string like natural gut or soft multi-filament. I can put a thin gauge like the 17 gauge in there, lower tension so it protects my arm, yet I still have a lot of control. Because the 1820 gives you less spin but gives you a lot more control. So that's great. For a younger kid, the 1820 usually doesn't work because they are looking to generate spin. And the 1820, the pattern is too dense to really generate the amount of spin that they are looking for. So those kids, for the most part, they like the more open patterns, the 1619, and lately sometimes even the really open, the 18 by 16. The 18 by 16 is a little bit issue with it because it generates tremendous spin, but you break strings extremely fast because the gaps are that big.
Sure.
But in general, for spin, you want to be with the more open pattern. For the more traditional hitting through the ball, the denser pattern works well.
Now you're talking about the gauge of the string, how thick the string is. What are the different levels?
Well, in general, there is different gauges, obviously. It can go anywhere between 18, meaning that's the thinnest gauge out there, and it can go all the way up to 15, which is a very, very thick gauge. For the most part, very few people that I know use the 18 gauge. Again, it's for people who have a lot of feel, a lot of touch, who don't break strings at all. They can go to the 18 gauge, because otherwise it breaks, for your kids there, it would last them 15 minutes and they would break it. So I would say 97% of the people use the either 17 gauge, or sometimes it's measured in millimeters, which is 1.25 millimeter, or the 16 gauge, which is 1.3 millimeter. Again, for parents who are concerned about breakage, about how long it lasts, you want to go to the thicker gauge, to the 16 gauge. For feel and touch and better basically everything, the 17 gauge is definitely way to go, especially with the polyester strings.
Okay. The last question, Roman, with the pros, a lot of people have questions about like how many rackets they bring to the courts, what is the tension that they use. If you can give us 2 examples, maybe one on the woman and one on the men's side, like how particular are the pros regarding like you're talking about the gauge, the string, the tension. So, I mean, if you can give us a ballpark on that.
All the pros are extremely sensitive to their equipment. It's not just the stringing and the tension, but it's the rackets, and that's where, people like me come in, because each racket has to be exactly perfect. The handle size, the handle shape, the weight, the balance, the swing weight, because, they make a living with it. So this is their equipment. So the difference between, the good racket and the bad racket could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's, for the people who read the Agassi book, that's what he mentions there. That, so that's incredibly important. The stringing, if you go, to the Grand Slams, you go to these tournaments and you start stringing for these, top guys, they end up stringing 8, 10, 12 rackets a day. And because what happens if you, let's say, you string, 12 rackets for Nadal or any of these players, by the next day, even if they don't use it, it drops tension. So overnight, you can lose 1, 2, 3 pounds, depending on what type of string. For them, that's a difference between winning and losing, because it just changes enough. Again, that's the top guys. You don't, have to overdo it, but every kid, once they start traveling to tournaments, they should really pay attention to the equipment. And let's say before they leave for the tournament, they should get all their rackets ready and done, as opposed to go to the tournament, the next day you play a tough match, you break 2 sets of strings, and now you have to give it to an unknown stringer with an unknown stringing machine, and you have no idea what you are doing. So because of that, you could be losing the tournament where, it costs money to go there, it costs a lot of time, and then you lose because you don't have the right equipment. So I would tell people, if you have 6 rackets in your bag, before you go to a tournament, even junior tournament, make sure you have everything in perfect shape, your tension, your strings, so that you are ready to play. And the top guys, like, for example, to use Sharapova or even Serena Williams, they string pretty tight. They string in the low 60s, actually, because they do the gut in the mains and they do the poly in the crosses. But again, like Sharapova strings between 10 and 12 rackets every single day.
Wow.
He is an incredible amount of stringing. Federer, for example, strings anywhere between 10 to 15. Nadal is a little bit different because Nadal strings always at the court. So he'll get about 6 rackets done before the match, but then he changes every six games. So he'll keep sending rackets back for restringing. So, we're stringing at the US Open for him at a tough match. I mean, he can end up doing 15 rackets per match.
Wow. Roman, thank you very much for all these answers. They're going to be extremely important for everybody to know. And we hope that we can do this again. Next time will be about the rackets.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.